Hey, what's going on? Editor Soul here, really quick to give you guys a quick warning that this is not a spoiler-free review. This is something of a review for me because I am talking about the entirety of my experience with Sonic X Shadow Generations. So, if you don't want any spoilers on anything gameplay related, on anything story related, I would suggest you go ahead and just play the game for yourself before coming back here to experience my thoughts and things on the review. So, go ahead, do that for yourself, and then come back here and we'll chit-chat about it. But alright, passing it to you, past me. Take it away. Alright. What's good, y'all? Soul here, and welcome back to my story mode. So, this was absolutely inevitable. There was no evading this. This had to happen, and I think it needed to happen as soon as humanly possible. And so, here we are. You've seen the title and you've seen the thumbnail. Today, we are officially talking about Sonic X Shadow Generations. I guess in a way or two, this is essentially going to serve as my general review of Sonic X Shadow Generations. You hear that, pal? It's your time to shine. Me too, man. Me too. How I do these is usually very, very simple. I'm going to talk about the list of things that I like and the list of things that I don't like. However, we're going to talk about the things that I like from both the Sonic Gens and the Shadow Gens aspect, and then we're going to do the same thing for the dislike portion. Now, let me just say that I am super duper grateful that we did not have to wait astronomically long for this remaster to be a thing. We got word about this project way back in February when they first showcased Shadow gameplay at the PlayStation State of Play. It was very subtle, it was very nice, it showed everything we needed to see, and we were hyped, we were ready, and after that is when we started to get more into the Year of Shadow. We were getting a lot of different merch and a lot of different little cameos and things like that for Shadow. Shadow was just the forefront and the focus of this year, and one of the two things that it was leading up to was this project here, as well as the movie that's coming out in 2 months from now. Now, of course, as somebody that's been a massive fan of this franchise for ever now, I was absolutely over the moon about a project that focused entirely on Shadow, especially a game that kind of decided to go ahead and pull the Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury situation. Couldn't have done it better myself. This was a revolutionary decision, and on top of the fact that this game, from all of the trailers that we saw leading up to everything, looked so good. This was easily some of the best looking Sonic content we think we had ever seen, and we didn't even have it in our hands yet, so that was saying something. I once again have to put out a massive thank you to Sonic Frontiers and the team that developed it, because my goodness, we would not be here without Frontiers. We would not see a future like this without Frontiers. We would not see something like The Dark Beginnings without Frontiers. The lead up was so beautiful, and the payoff, we'll get to it, but it's a good time to be a Sonic fan, and I'm gonna say that for as many times and as long as it takes to really get that through everybody's heads, because Sonic is truly something again, and the series really means something again, and that is so incredibly exciting, man. It's so good to be here right now. And that's the thing. With Sonic Generations, I've made it clear a couple of times, I believe now, that Sonic Generations is not my favorite Sonic game by any means. I think that it was very good for its time, I thought that it was very polished, I thought that it had a solid gameplay loop and structure between the two Sonics, and I thought that it was I'd say a decent length. I think it was really, going back to it again and again, it made me realize just how short that game was. Like, you could beat that sucker in like maybe 4 to 5 hours minimum. Like, it was not really doing all that. But to get me hyped for this game like that was ridiculous. As soon as 9 o'clock hit the other night, I hopped on and I recorded all my reactions to playing the game, and that was the greatest couple of hours I've ever spent on a game, man. So, we're gonna talk about all of that, anything and everything right now. Hey, Editor Soul, please remember to put a timestamp this time, you yapper. Oh, man. Okay, I think it's safe to say that I have more than said my piece, so why don't we go ahead and start getting into things. Let's start with the things that I definitely enjoyed, and let's start with the Sonic Gens portion. The first and most noticeable thing is absolutely the fact that Sonic Generations base game runs like butter now. It is insane to see the jump to 1080, like the 60 frame. Oh my goodness, that game runs just beautifully now. It's crazy how responsive it is, how good the controls feel now, and just how good it looks to look at. No frame drops in any boss battles, in any levels, or anything of the sort, and especially in the hub world, it's so smooth. Everything is incredibly smooth, and it's almost jarring. Like I said, we've had Sonic Generations for a very long time, so I think that it's very obviously noticeable when it jumps frames like that, when it gets that smooth. Because the last time that I played it, I mean, no, that's a lie. I played it on PS3 the most. I did have it on my PC, and it ran okay, but not like this. Not as good as this, man. It's freaky, almost, how good this game runs. And I really can't complain, because it's one of those situations where I could definitely see myself revisiting base gens again and again, like I have the past couple of years since it's been out on the PS3. So, yeah, I could absolutely see myself revisiting this and just enjoying it thoroughly even more now than ever because it runs so smoothly. So I'm really happy that they did what they did. It looks good on both 3D Sonics and 2D Sonics levels and setups. Really happy with that. The next thing that I'm happy about after that is one of the things that I was worried about the most, but it was kind of inevitable that they would fix this, and that's the touched up and revamped voice acting and voice lines. In original Sonic Generations, whenever Sonic would save one of his friends, they would say something to him, and he wouldn't say anything. Now for 2D Sonic, for Classic Sonic, that's totally fine, because Classic Sonic doesn't talk. I mean, I still think he should be able to talk, but in Sonic Gens he never talked. And you know what? That's fine, that's how they set him up. 3D Sonic, however, had absolutely no reason to just not say anything and not react. That was like a major weird thing that they did, because they made it very obvious when Sonic Generations came out that this was a yapper Sonic. This was the Sonic that was coming fresh off of the heels of Sonic Colors, the Sonic that made jokes and replied to everything and just liked to talk a lot. So it was very jarring to see how unusually and unnecessarily quiet he was throughout a majority of the game. But that's all good and dandy now, because if you finish the final act of a certain stage with regular modern 3D Sonic, you get actual replies from the cutscenes after you save one of his friends. And that's cool. That's absolutely very awesome. But on top of that, there is a little bit of a revamp, not only in the writing, but in the voice acting as well. Now again, we're coming very hot off the heels of a Roger Craig Smith that gave us the performance that he did with Sonic Frontiers, where it was like very clearly a much older, much more experienced, deeper, more tired Sonic. It's very clear that that's kind of what they were trying to go for. He was a lot more dramatic in his act there, and I was totally fine with it. I don't see what anybody else's problem with it is. I don't get that, because I love his performance in that game. I think he did an amazing job. I love that more kind of gruff, like more tired, like older Sonic that's doing his thing. I love that about him, and they were a lot more calm with his character too, which is why it made sense. However, technically, Sonic Generations does take place in a space with no time, but it's during his anniversary where he was still that younger, more yapper, more excitable Sonic. So it does make sense that he kind of re-delivered that version of him in these redone lines, essentially. However, I don't know if anybody else ever said anything about this. I'm sure plenty of people have talked about this. I just don't think that I've seen enough reviews or people talk about Sonic Generations in general. But there was like a weird thing in the original Sonic Generations where his mic was garbage. Like, it sounded like he was recording from like a dollar store mic or something like that. Or at least in certain cutscenes, it sounded strange. Like, it just, I don't know. You could definitely tell his mic was not of the quality of literally anybody else's. And it was really, really weird. They fixed that this time around, and I'm very happy that they did that. I don't know to what extent they did it, because I have to replay the original gens to see how many lines were re-recorded or re-fixed up or retouched up or redone. But for the most part, everything sounds consistent now. He has a proper mic, everything sounds glorious, and I'm very happy that they did that for him, because now I don't ever have to worry about him sounding completely off and just estranged from everybody else who had a proper mic. It was very weird to hear him have dialogue with Tails. Tails sounds proper and fine and normal, and it sounds like he's stuck in a void somewhere and doing his best to just act like he's not. It was really strange, but they fixed it. I'm happy with that, thank goodness. And then of course my final positive about this is just simply the fact that Sonic Gens is still Sonic Gens. None of the levels that were present have had any major changes or anything like that. All of the level designs are completely intact, completely unchanged, and just retouched up for the sake of making everything run a little bit smoother. However, every alternating pathway is still there, whether you go on top path, lower path, middle path, depending on who you're playing as, whether it be classic Sonic or modern Sonic. All of the levels are there to be enjoyed as they have been for the last like 10 to 11, 12 years or so. So, I'm happy with that. I'm glad it's back, and everything looks and feels as it should. Just now, way smoother and way more buttery. Again, had to get used to the controls again, because dashing with L2 and R2 or whatever definitely was not how we played it originally. But I'm totally fine with that, just took a little bit of an adjustment period. Now, of course, that aspect of things is a bit of a double-edged sword, but we'll get to that when we get to the negatives. I'll explain myself, I promise. But it's about time we start talking about the Shadow Gens aspect, the most important part of this remaster. Shadow Gens is the thing that made us purchase this game. The aspect that made this game worth the $50 or $60, $70, $80 that you spent on it. I don't know. It depends on which version you bought. I bought the Ultimate Edition, of course, so I was able to play it 3 days early. I was able to beat it very early, so it gave me time to do this. But regardless, it is the aspect that made this whole purchase worth it. So, what did we like about it? Well, I guess it's my turn to start here. Let's see. Now, I think it is absolutely no mystery and no shock and no surprise to anybody that this, in my opinion, as well as a lot of others, that this is some of the best and highest quality Sonic content we have ever gotten. And it is not close. Again, this is coming from somebody that absolutely adores Frontiers. I like what Sonic Frontiers did for us. There was a lot of times where they made the characters so good looking and expressive, and they definitely did what they could with the budget in hand. But Sonic, or rather Shadow Gens, is absolutely a different beast entirely. Now, of course, I think they were able to do this more comfortably because it was a much smaller package. But you know what? Smaller doesn't always necessarily mean worse. They were able to utilize this compacted version of Shadow, or like Sonic, whatever, of the Generations aspect, and where they were able to make something completely new with it. And because of that, they had the time, the resources, and the manpower to make this one of the most beautiful looking Sonic media things, games especially, absolutely ever. Shadow looks phenomenal. His quills react to everything he does. His movements look so fluid and nice and satisfying. Literally every movement he does, whether it be attacking, running, defending, whatever he happens to be doing on the screen, everything looks like it is just handcrafted to a pristine edge. It looks magnificent, almost damn near hypnotizing how good he looks. And that applies to pretty much any cutscene, any character detail within this. This is easily one of the best looking Sonic things we have ever seen, and it's not really much of a competition at all. I'm sorry, but you can argue with me all you want, but all you gotta do is look at it, and you could tell this is what we're looking for, and we finally got it with this. It's so beautiful. Hey, Future Soul, cutting in really quick to just throw in the little tidbit that I think that this also applies not only to the models of Shadow, Rouge, Omega, but especially Maria and Gerald Robotnik. These are the first humans that we've seen in the Sonic franchise in a very long time, which is in a way very symbolic. That it's all come back to these two in a way, and it's really, really cool that they look as good as they do. I'm very happy and pleased with the way these models and characters turned out. These are the best models we have ever had in this franchise, hands down. Very slight chance I might butt in again later, but for now, back to you past me. And that doesn't just apply to like the general look of the game in of itself, because exploring that overworld, it is very nice, but when you get to those levels, man, it is a different freaking beast. Those levels look phenomenal. I'm talking godlike. You would never realize the game that Kingdom Valley comes from. You would never even realize, if you had never played 06, you would look at that and be like, oh my god, the aesthetic of this level is so massively incredible. What game is this from? What are they referencing with Kingdom Valley? Where does this come from? And then you see Sonic 06, it's like, oh my goodness. Now, here's the thing, right? I've made it very clear that I love the level design in Sonic 06. I love the way Kingdom Valley has looked. It is easily one of my favorite aesthetics in all of Sonic history, and in video games, actually. I maybe not my favorite. We'll have a discussion on that at some point or other, but it's beautiful, and they somehow managed to make it even more beautiful in Shadow Generations. And on top of that, they made it fit so well into the, you know, like, modern style of the boost formula of Sonic, and they did so well. They did incredible with what they had to work with, and I'm so happy that they did that, because Sonic 06 levels in general need a lot more representation, and I think that they did a splendid and phenomenal job with Kingdom Valley. I love it so much, and I'm so happy how it came out. And then, of course, when you even just look at the cutscenes, again, while I said everything looks beautiful, but it is all brought together into this beautiful little Sonic pie when you consider the fact that the voice acting is at its peak. Man, oh my goodness, when I tell you that voice direction is a hell of a thing, and when it's done properly, it makes a toothpick changes everything type beat. They did that, man. Them giving Kirk Thornton actual lore and context on the character that he's been voicing for the last, like, 10 years, it makes a difference, man. He never knew who this character was. He never understood because he never needed to. They said, be edgy, be nothing, be this guy, whatever, that can crack a couple of times and, you know, he's edgy, but he's also goofy. They did not tell him how tragic Shadow's backstory was, how he had the most tragic story in all of Sonic's history. And him having that knowledge and having the proper voice direction allowed him to give an act that was just so stellar. I want to give it awards, man. I know that the Game Awards will probably not acknowledge this game in any way, shape, or form, but if I had the option, Kirk Thornton is getting an award for that acting, man, because he put out a hell of a performance. Oh my goodness, it made a major difference, and I love the way he did it, man. And that's not even counting everybody else that did a phenomenal job, man. Even the little bits and pieces of Karen Strassman that did her voice for this project, she did phenomenally because they actually gave her proper voice direction this time around. She was actually able to deliver a performance that made sense for Rouge. I'm actually perfectly fine with her as Rouge now. I couldn't stand her before, but now I could see her for the foreseeable future as this character. I think she did a splendid job, and I can't wait to see what they do next. And then, of course, there was Mike Pollock. He did a splendid job as Gerald Robotnik. You could definitely tell, like, kind of off rip that it is Mike Pollock, but he definitely did put in the effort to make it an older gentleman, a much more tame, more relaxed gentleman that, you know, was just definitely dedicated to family, to research, to Maria, to Shadow, to his work. And I think he did a good job. I think he did a good job this time around. Love that. Love that we can have a Gerald Robotnik in this form. Moving on to the general game itself, we absolutely need to acknowledge the fact that these levels, both 2D and 3D, whether it be a side-scroller level, usually Act 2, or the main 3D first act levels, these are the best designed levels in the entire Sonic franchise. Call it glazing, say I'm riding it, say I'm slopping on it, I don't give a goddamn. These levels do it for me, man. These levels have so much love, so much care, so much heart, and they showcase that in the fact that there are so many different pathways to take, so many different ways to finish the level, so many ways to just, you know, play your way. They give you so many options, they give you so many different ways, and by the end of the game, when you have all of your abilities, you have different options now. You have so many different options to get around these levels that you could find your own unique way to speedrun it that nobody else maybe ever will at any given point in time. If you study the level enough, if you understand the powers enough, you could do that. You could absolutely do that, and I completely love that, okay? Like I said, the designs of the levels in of themselves are absolutely stellar, but the fact that they're so stellar stems from the fact that they are just generally so well designed for such lengthy levels. I believe it's called Sunset Heights, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, or I'll correct myself, I'll figure it out. But Sunset Heights, the level from Sonic Forces, you would never know how bad that game was if you played this version of Sunset Heights. Oh my goodness gracious, that level is the yummiest thing we have ever had, okay? Now, this is coming from somebody that, my favorite level personally is still Kingdom Valley. I think that Kingdom Valley eats like no other, but Sunset Heights, bro, they give you everything you need. When you have your toolkit, when you have everything ready to go, when they throw you in there, that level challenges you in the right ways, dude. It's so good. And I'm gonna put it like this. Fidel said it perfectly. 2D levels were never the problem with the Sonic franchise. We just needed to be reminded that going 2D, doing the side-scroller situation, was never bad. It just needed to be done properly. And this entire game, this entire section, all of Shadow Generations, proves that. They locked in for every single one of these acts. All of them. And oh my god, did it pay off. Wow, dude. Jeez. Adding all of these little events and powers and everything that happens in between these levels really makes it, really invests you to hell and back. And it's just, they did such an incredible job. They did an awesome job with that, dude. So happy with how they came out. We're definitely going to talk a lot more about this game for sure, and like a lot of level stuff and things like that. But I definitely want to do specifically not a breakdown per se, but definitely a look into every single one of these levels. Not that there's a lot, there's only like 5 technically, but I want to look into all of these levels and really talk about what makes them special, because man, they nailed it on the head with every single one of these levels, dude. It really made you feel nostalgic, and it hit the right way. They really did that. And then of course, when you're coming out of those levels, there's so much to do in the overworld that it's actually kind of overwhelming. Now, this is probably where you'll end up spending a majority of your time, considering the fact that there is just collectibles upon collectibles upon collectibles. Not only is there the journal, but there's like the screws that you got to get for Orbot and Cubot. There's a lot of different treasure chests, whether it contains artwork, music pieces, or just scrap designs and things, and very special things to showcase from other previous Sonic works and projects and things like that. There's just so many different things to do. And obviously you're gonna have to play a lot of these levels again and again and again to get all of the medals and keys that you need to access all of these things. And it's so worth it, because these levels and all these areas are just so fun to play around in that it makes it very worth it. And I could definitely see myself, I don't know if I'm gonna 100% it, but I'm definitely gonna invest a lot of time into exploring even more of that overworld whenever I get the chance, because it's just so much fun to do so. And then, man, another thing we got to talk about, the bosses. Oh no! Oh my goodness, those bosses are crazy, man. I'm more than positive that Future Me put a spoiler warning at the beginning of this video, but just in case, because we're really getting into spoiler territory now, I'm giving you a little bit of time, lock in. Maybe I'll put a little thing to jump, because this is spoiler territory now, so give yourself some time, and we're hopping in. They cooked insanely hard with Neo Metal, with Bio Lizard, with Mephiles. Oh my goodness, Mephiles goes absolutely insane. Wow, dude. Don't even get me started on Devil Doom. They locked in. They did that. They absolutely did that. I'm shocked, just appalled at how awesome these bosses are and how much they mean to Shadow's history. I mean, not so much Neo Metal for sure, but Bio Lizard was important. I was shocked that Bio Lizard wasn't like one of the last, but I guess it was one of those things that was expected, so I guess that's why they made Bio Lizard first. But Mephiles, bro, they cooked crazy with Mephiles, dude. They went nuts with him, and I was a little disappointed at first when I realized that it was not Dan Green voicing Mephiles. As much as I would have loved Dan Green to come back, the 4Kids cast is probably just done. They don't want to do this anymore. However, if I'm not incorrect, is that Robbie? Is that young Robbie Draymond, bro? He cooked with Mephiles, man. Mephiles was fighting for his life, not only just trying to get remembered, but to put himself back into the essentially the canon. Essentially, I mean, not that I guess in a way he is canon. It's just that nobody remembers him. So it's really cool that they heavily acknowledge the fact that nobody remembers the events of 06, but it is the history of what happened is present, and Mephiles remembers. He's there, he remembers, and he was fighting for his damn place back because he felt like he deserved better. And you know what? He was absolutely right. But unfortunately for him, he messed with Shadow. And what's crazy is this time, Shadow didn't even need to take off the inhibitor rings, brother. He whooped his ass full stop. Just him I mean, okay, Doom powers aside, you know, but it was such an awesome boss fight that I could not get enough of it. I'm gonna hop back in probably very soon after this recording, you know, to get the footage and everything, but it's so good. It's so good how well they did these boss fights. Hello, Editor Soul is cutting in once again to acknowledge the fact that I did not realize until way later that there are a couple of different ways to beat these bosses, specifically with and without chaos control. I had no idea that there was an entire scene dedicated to beating Neo Metal with chaos control because I never used it at the end of that fight. That is so... oh my goodness, their attention to detail is beautiful. They locked the hell in with these boss fights. They made them outstanding, and they made them just so cinematic, and I appreciate them so much for that. Okay, that's enough gushing. Pass, Soul, it's you again. And last but not least, of course, we need to acknowledge the general story. Now, I will say this much. The setup was so phenomenal that I needed to remember to lower my expectations a bit, because I had to keep reminding myself, I'm like, this is going to be a 3 to 4 hour package. The setup that they did was so outstandingly phenomenal that it almost made me raise my expectations way too high. So I had to dumb it down a little bit. I was like, okay, you know what? I know what this is. We all know what this story is, and we can't let this get out of hand. Yes, it was bound to touch on Shadow's character a little bit. That was an absolute given. However, we need to remember that this is a time anomaly story. So everything that happens here, while the characters will remember, yes, it's not going to so heavily affect the future of Sonic that it's going to just blow us away in just new ways entirely, okay? And, you know, I think it was good for me to do that, right? Now, I'm not saying, this is not me undermining what we did get, because I'm gonna say it now, what we did get was phenomenal. It's one of those things when you're like, hey, Ian, keep cooking, my boy. Keep cooking, because you clearly know these characters too well. You know what to do with them, and you have a general idea of what the public wants. You're on the internet, and you have an idea. You know how to cook, and you can cook. And this right here, Shadow Generations, is the living, embodying proof of that skill set. So keep doing you, big boss, because you did phenomenal work with Shadow's story this time around. Of course, there were a couple of aspects that were absolutely predictable, but the way that it was done was totally fine and satisfying in a way that makes sense for Shadow's story and for the general story of Sonic Generations. It's how it had to happen, and I'm fine with how it played out. As much as I would have wanted a situation in which Shadow was actually able to change time even a little bit to make it so that Maria and Gerald could actually properly come back and just live their lives, it would have been too good to be true. It would have been too good to be true. And I knew in my heart the moment that we saw that trailer where Maria and Shadow were seeing each other from a distance, I knew in my heart, I was like, not only is it going to be devastating when Sonic fixes time and puts them back in their proper places in time, but man, is it going to be devastating, because I knew for a fact that Shadow was going to want to do what he could to maybe fix their situation, but knowing damn well he couldn't do anything about it. And that is the worst. That is the most gut-wrenching thing you could have done. Easily. Man, I can't believe you. Ian, keep cooking, brother. Write a book, man. Write a book. Not the Sonic comics. That doesn't count. Write a real book, man. Because you got it. You got it. You have more than proven your skill set. I'm there. Let me know, man. Hi, Future Soul, Editor Soul, yapping at you once again, because once again, I don't think that I have conveyed my feelings as properly as I could have in the moment, especially because I have had a couple of days to actually sit with this story. And I said earlier that it was good that I lowered my expectations a bit, because I felt like I would be a lot more disappointed if I didn't, and I feel like that came across incorrectly. As in, I didn't think the story was all that. And initially, after finishing the playthrough, I was a little, underwhelmed. It didn't sit with me as much as I thought it would, until I really sat with it, saw other playthroughs and other people experiencing it, and then I truly understood what this story means for Shadow and exactly how it affected him and why it was so important. Him overcoming this overwhelming rage after trying to essentially defy something that was a part of him for so long was an astounding journey for him, because he had to finally just fully face and acknowledge truly what he was. He is part alien. He is part of whatever Black Doom's regime was, and that sucks. That is awful. And even Gerald said, like, you know, you're suffering for my sins, and I apologize for that. You deserve so much better than this because you are so much more than this, Shadow. And that is so incredibly important to Shadow's character that I didn't really realize it in the moment until really going back and fully understanding and grasping not only Shadow's abilities and his anger, but the words of everybody around him, Gerald, Maria, even Omega and Rouge. The way I interpret this is, it's a story of acceptance. This is Shadow truly coming to terms with what he is and what he's been through and what he's lost. And the most important and frustrating part about all of that is that he can't change anything, and that is so evident by the fact that Maria and Gerald are there, and he's thinking to himself immediately off rip, can I save them? Can I do anything to save them? And all of these abilities that he wants to just make his own so that he can destroy Black Doom for good, and all of this hate and malice and rage within him because he's so frustrated with what he's become and what he's a part of, only for Maria to step in and be like, Shadow, this isn't you. I understand that you're frustrated and angry, but you're more than this, and I know that better than anyone because I've known you the best and I've known you the longest, and that's why I love you, because you are a light, one that you don't even realize that you are. And it's an incredibly lovely story when you truly put everything together, which is why the end hits so much harder when you realize all of the turmoil and strife Shadow had to get through to get to where he is now and where he's going to get in the future. Wherever that may lead, we'll have to see what happens. Frontiers 2? I don't know. But regardless, it is truly a story of acceptance, and I think it's almost impossible to overstate at this point just how beautifully woven this story is. Chef Flynn, you demon, bro. Get the knife, get back in there, and start cooking, brother, because you've got something crazy going on up there, man, and I can't wait to see what happens next. So yeah, I just wanted to throw this 2 cents in there because I really think it's important to note that I love this story so much. Just this little package of it, I simply don't think there was enough, and all at the same time, it did all that it needed to do in this little package. It's truly incredible. So I love it. I really, really, really do think that this is one of the best stories ever told in Sonic history, hands down. Okay, I think this is my last interjection, so pass Soul back to you for good this time. So overall, I gotta say that this package was so awesome, and even though I am sick to death of Sonic Generations, I'm glad that they did the touch-ups that they did to make that experience even more than it was before, just so that we have a justifiable reason to actually make this purchase, because the one thing that you want to do with any form of remaster is make the game better than it was before. And doing that with the base game on top of adding a completely brand new game on top of it made this way more worth what the original Sonic Gens had to offer. And that's all we asked for. That's it. And I'm happy about that. That's all I could have asked, and we got it delivered. Thank you guys for locking in and doing that, bro. Thank you for doing that. So now we move on to the not so good aspect. What aspects of Sonic X Shadow Gens rather was I not as fond of? Of course, we're gonna start with the Sonic Gens portion. The only real problem that I have with Sonic Generations is what was already present in base Sonic Generations, which is that the story is still ass. The bare bones, almost nothing story, super whatever, okay? Even with the touch-ups and fix-ups of voice lines and things like that, not that big of a deal, not like anything major. It's good that those are there, it does make things a little bit better, but it doesn't overall enhance the story in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't change the story in any way, shape, or form. It's kind of just a big nothing burger, which is totally fine. The point of Sonic Generations has always been its gameplay, and I can live with that. But it's just the fact that the story is just so nothing. That is just, it offers nothing in the grand scheme of things, that it's a little, okay, whatever. And again, this is something that I expected, so it's not like it takes away points from my enjoyment of the game or anything like that, because the game in of itself is still phenomenal. It's just that it has no story to speak of whatsoever, in my book. Fine, cool, whatever. And then, of course, there is the aspect of the second half of the game, which is essentially the worst part to me. I was never a big fan of Planet Wisp, whether it be 3D or 2D Sonic's version of the level. Both of them are ass, they're just miserable to get through. And then on top of the fact that right after that is the Egg Dragoon fight, which is very unclear in a lot of aspects. And, you know, I know the Egg Dragoon fight, so it's not that big of a deal to me, but, not a huge fan of it. And then, of course, there is the Time Eater fight, which is still impressively the worst boss fight in Sonic history. What the hell? It's especially jarring because 90% of us went to Shadow Gens first, only to go back to Sonic Gens, finish that, and then have to fight the Time Eater. It's such a juxtaposition to see some of the best gameplay we've had in years versus the worst final boss we've ever had, I think. Maybe it's not the worst of all time, but it's definitely up there. It's definitely like top 5 worst Sonic bosses of all time. Easily. It's so stupid and so annoying. It's just not good. But, you know, it is what it is. This is a remaster, not a remake. They could only do so much with the time and power allotted, and they did what they could. I can live with that. Fine. Other than that, though, I think that just about does it for the general base of Sonic Gens. I think they wrapped everything up in a nice little bow that made things very bearable and even better to play than the original Sonic Generations, and that in of itself makes this game a much more worthy version of the original game. So yeah, this is definitely the best version of Sonic Generations that we could get. And then of course on the Shadow side, I have one issue. My only true issue with Shadow Generations is the fact that you guys had the nerve to make this that short. What is it? What is it with you guys always giving us the best Sonic content? It's always a repeat, right? We always get some of the best Sonic content we have ever seen in the entirety of the franchise, and it's this much of it. Like, how? Why? Guys, give us a goddamn sandwich. What? I don't want 2 chicken bites. I want give me a freaking BLT. Give me the whole thing. Why is it that we could finish this game in absolutely no time at all? What are we doing, guys? Log in! I knew it was gonna be short. I was fully aware from the very beginning, but actually getting through it in a night? Oh, it's so good! And I consumed it way too fast because I didn't want to get spoiled on anything, because spoilers were floating around like nobody's business, and I wanted to get as much of that story as fast as I could as possible, only to knock it out in no time flat. Insane what they did, bro. Insane. But isn't that speaking something though? I'm upset that it's too short because I simply wanted more. So, Sega, Sonic Team, Ian, I'm gonna need y'all to do me a favor. Whatever project y'all got planned next in terms of the Sonic video games, do this again. Do it again. Because this is easily some of the best content we have had in forever. And it simply was not enough. We cannot... This is going to last us a good little while, I guess. But not nearly long enough, because we now see the potential. We now see the potential of a future for Sonic where we get more like this, where we have these super high quality cutscenes, where we have these deep, intricate lore and stories for our characters, where we have these awesomely well designed and crafted 2D and 3D levels alike that give us so much to enjoy, so much insane fun platforming and power usage, and just, you know, utilization of these characters' abilities and powers and skill sets. But for it to be in such a short package like Shadow Generations is genuinely criminal, because we have to wait who knows how long for this next Sonic game to deliver upon us what this game was able to give us, especially if it's going to be nearly as high quality as this game was. So, take all the time you need, cook as long and as hard as you need to, but if there's one thing I need y'all to do, it's to do this again. Shadow Generations, easy 10 out of 10. Maybe a 9.5 out of 10 solely because I'm petty that it's too short. That is legitimately it for me, man. It's just, I'm gonna go eat it again right now. I really am gonna go just fly through the game again right now because I just need more of that in my veins, bro. Inject whatever Shadow Gens gave to me in here, bro. Give it to me. But I think it's safe to say that that just about does it for my, I guess, essentially review, of Shadow Generations. So, this was a stellar experience. I loved this game from, well, I guess Shadow Generations from start to finish. And I want to feel that way for the next Sonic game as well. So, hopefully, y'all continue to cook. Keep it up with the music, man. That's another thing I didn't mention was absolutely stellar was the music. I can't wait for y'all to drop that soundtrack. I'm going to be listening to it on a regular basis, much like I do with a majority of the Sonic franchise's music. But, you know, y'all take the time to do what y'all need to do. Do the mix-ups, do whatever y'all got to do in the studio, and, you know, hand it to us whenever you're ready. That same thing goes for the next Sonic game. Give us these stellar cutscenes again. Give us these stellar character writings and, you know, movesets and things like that. Give us these awesome characters again. Give us whatever you can in the next few coming years, because I'm really excited for the future of Sonic now, more so than ever. Shadow Gens is like the strongest glimpse we've ever had into a true future for Sonic, and I can't wait to see what flourishes from this. But, you know, I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see. So that just about does it for this. However, I might put this at the beginning as well, but I'm going to say it here as well. If you guys would like to see my full blind playthrough of Shadow Generations, I'm going to put a link in the description below, and it's probably going to be probably on a playlist on my channel as well. You could go check that out. I'm definitely going to put up all parts of the Shadow Generations Let's Play on a different channel so that you guys can enjoy that blind playthrough to see my reactions to everything. And we'll go from there. But, you know, if y'all want to see that, feel free. That would be really, really awesome if you guys could support that. And I would really appreciate it. But, for the time being, it does appear to be skedaddle o'clock. But, before I go, I would like to know everything that you guys are thinking in the comment section below. Did you enjoy Sonic and Shadow Generations? Did you think that this package was worth it? They gave us everything that we needed for the Sonic franchise right now, and you're super excited like I am for the future of Sonic? Or are you not feeling it? You did not like this package at all. You don't think it was worth the time or the money spent, and you want everything back because you feel like you wasted time and you're absolutely done with this franchise. Tell me everything that you guys are thinking in the comment section below, because you know for a fact that I'm always going to be down there with you guys. But with that, it does appear to be skedaddle o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and do just that. I would like to thank you guys ever so much for watching. I truly do hope you enjoyed. Do me the greatest favor, drop a like and a comment, and consider subscribing for more content just like this here. And with that, I'm gone, so thanks again, hope you enjoyed, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Do me the greatest favor, taking good ass care, and I'll see you all next time.